Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to the Marketing That Grows Your Business Show. I'm excited that you're here. I'm super excited about the conversation we're going to have today with my sweet friend, Mark Schaefer. He's our special guest today. I've known Mark for a long time, and what I think one of the things I'm most appreciative of him when I get a chance to, if we're at the same event and we speak, and then we maybe sometimes get a chance to have dinner, is his approach to deep thinking. He doesn't really approach the things from a shiny object perspective. That's not Mark. He's more about principles and, a deeper thought process. So if you are that person out there that is like, okay, how do I stand out in this crazy, crazy world? With all the content information flowing all over the place, how can I show up and be amazing? Then you're going to get some amazing value from today's conversation. So as you guys are coming in, give me a shout out. Where in the world are you? I am in Virginia today. I'll be in Virginia. Some of you guys may know, but I sold my house in Florida. We've got closed on it, all good, super quick. That's the way the housing market is this day. Sold day 2, and we were out of there. So that's a positive thing. I'll be in Virginia taking care of my 97-year-old dad for the next 6 months or so. And then we'll figure out where we're going from there. We don't really know. We've got a few hot spots picked out, like maybe Tennessee. We lived there for 8 years. So we're like, should we go back to Tennessee? We liked it there. So I see we've got Chuck in the house. Good morning, Chuck. I'm so glad you're here. As always, I appreciate you coming. Katie is coming and joining us from the UK. Katie, I'm glad you're here. We've got Lisa in the house, Virginia. Yeah, okay. It's lovely here. The mountains, you just don't get a better view for sure. Well, maybe in Tennessee, because there's some mountains in Tennessee too. Our special guest today is from Tennessee too. So Arizona, maybe Arizona, right? We've been looking on the short list is tax-free states, right? So should we go back to Florida or Tennessee? I don't know. We'll figure it out. Debbie from Kentucky, welcome, Debbie. If you've never been on one of my shows before, I'll just introduce myself real quick, and I would love it if you do the same. And just use #new so I know that you've never been with us before, so I can say hey. My name is Kim Garst. I am an online monetization strategist. Really just says that's a fancy way of saying I just love helping people make more money in their online businesses. Hence the Marketing That Grows Your Business show. We love bringing amazing people your way that can help you do just that. We've got Connecticut in the house. Mary, is it Mary Ellen? I see the Mary Dash Ellen. That's an unusual way of showing up. I like that. Paul, always glad to see you, my friend. We've got Darla in the house as well. Excellent. Okay, just a couple of quick things before we bring in our special guest. We do giveaways on every one of my shows. Today is no different. One of the things we're doing slightly differently today, and y'all are going to love this, is we sometimes give away the guest speakers' books if they have one. But y'all, this book is incredible. We're going to be giving away Mark's latest book. By the way, he has 9 of them. So we're giving away his latest book, Cumulative Advantage, which is all about what we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to choose 2 winners for Mark's latest book. If you haven't read some of his previous ones, guys, they're all amazing. So if you're that person that's always looking for a good read, just make a list of his and just go down through them. You will be blessed by all the amazing knowledge you get from them. So how do you win? There's 3 core ways that we love to put you in the wheel of wow. One is share your aha moments in the comments. Now, an aha moment is, I didn't know that. You know how you have those moments? Drop those in with a hashtag aha. Or sometimes you knew it, you just needed to hear it again. Okay, so that's an aha moment. Also, tag someone or sprinkle this out into the world. We also enter you into the will of well multiple times, depending on how many times you do the three things. Okay. And then last but certainly not least, we love the questions. So I always come prepared with a list of my questions. But what about yours? Your questions are amazing. We want them. Ask them. We'll get to as many of them as we possibly can. Also, if you don't want to sit around and take notes, like who does, but you would like to have somebody else do the work for you, we do that around here. So if you would like show notes, just drop them in, comment below notes, and we will make sure you get those. We usually have them out to you within 24 hours. Okay. All right. So, one quick thing before we bring in our special guest. Okay. Yeah. It looks like got everything handled there. All right, we're all good. All right, let me tell you a little bit about Mark. This is his official bio. I could probably talk about him forever, but this is the official verbiage. He is a globally recognized author, keynote speaker, futurist, and business consultant who blogs at it's actually I'll give you guys his website so you can go check it out if you don't know of him already. He has one of the top 5 marketing blogs in the world. In fact, when I first started in the online space, I remember distinctly, consistently going to his blog because he had such amazing content, and he still does. He teaches graduate marketing classes at Rutgers University and has written 9 best-selling books. His new book, Cumulative Advantage: How to Build Momentum for Your Ideas, Business, and Life Against All Odds, is an essential new path to being seen and heard in today's busy world. So you guys put your hands together for my sweet friend, Mark Schaefer. Hey, Mark. How are you this morning?
I am sweaty.
So
Have
we
you
were
ever had a guest tell you I'm sweaty?
I have never had that happen before, I'll
Yeah,
have to
well,
say.
we had an internet outage here, and so I didn't really trust my phone hotspot, so I literally had to go up my hill to a different location.
Okay.
So here
Well,
I
thank
am in all my
you.
sweaty glory, ready to dispense knowledge.
All right. That's amazing. So we were just a few minutes late when we first got started because, like Mark said, he had a little tech issue. I tell you, though, the funny thing about lives is there's always something.
Yeah,
Like, it's
kind
always
of like
something.
life.
It's right. Exactly. It's always something. So, thank you for doing the sweaty work and getting to another location to be with us. I appreciate that. My first question, because I think a lot of times people think, oh, 9 books. Wow, look at him. But where did you start? How did you get started in this online space? Kind of give us like a 2-minute blurb of your journey to arrive to where you are today.
Well, I had a long career in the corporate world, and actually, at the time, did some pioneering work around the internet and using the internet for B2B commercial value, which was unusual at the time. And then started my own business. I think I'm about 14 years now, maybe 15 this fall. And at that time, social media was just getting really hot, and I was consulting. I was beginning to teach a little bit and write, and I knew I needed to immerse myself in the social media world. And that's probably, when you and I first connected. I think we've been connected at least 10 years, Kim, and I just loved it. I thought, this world of social media marketing is endlessly fascinating. It's not for the faint of heart because it changes so much. If you want to be, if you like stable, go into accounting or something like that. But you've got to be nimble, and you've got to be an open learner really to be in marketing. And I loved it. I think there's nothing more fun to immerse myself in this. I started a blog, and the blog took off at the time because there were very few very experienced business people blogging at that time. So I had an unusual voice. I had an unusual amount of experience for the time. And I think that's still key to standing out today, is finding out what's different about you and having the courage to put that out into the world. The blog sort of took off. I never had a goal of writing a book or a dream of writing a book. But I got approached by a publisher and asked me if I would try it, and it was very, very nerve wracking. But I did it, and I actually wrote the first book on influence marketing called Return on Influence, and it became a big hit. And I discovered it was something I was pretty good at, and I enjoyed it. So today, I'm a speaker. I speak, at big conferences and events. I'm a consultant, normally to big brands, but a little bit of everything. I teach at Rutgers, as you mentioned, and enjoy blogging. I've got a podcast called The Marketing Companion, and so that's about it.
That's just about it. Like that's just a little thing. But I think to your point, when we started, it wasn't as congested as it is today. I often tell people I'm not sure I could recreate what I've built today, because it's a little harder, I think, which is one of the reasons I'm so excited to talk to you about this, because the concept of standing out today, it's more difficult than it was, and maybe even in I call it the early days. It makes us sound like we're well, maybe we are.
Back in the day, we walked to the internet, and we liked it. We walked 5 miles in the snow. We had no connectivity.
Uphill both ways too, right? Yeah. So I know you have this new book called Cumulative Advantage, and it's all about standing out. And my curiosity question for you out the gate is, what, in your definition, is that cumulative advantage? If you had to define it, like, what would that look like?
Well, I don't have to define it. It's already been pretty well defined in the world of sociology, and this idea that you were talking about, Kim, that it's so hard to stand out today, is exactly why I wrote this book. And that's sort of been the trajectory of my career, helping people find ways to stand out. And what frustrates me is that even if we're doing our best work, even if we're excellent, chances are, because of the information density and competition in this world, we're getting buried. And that just doesn't seem fair. And I wanted to find an answer. And it led me to this idea of creating momentum. If you're sort of stuck, how do you get to that next level? How can we be heard? How can we be seen? How can we be discovered in this busy world? And there's actually a lot of research in this area that began back in the 60s, but it's never really been applied to people and businesses. There are patterns to momentum. And it started with this research that was done by a very famous sociologist that nobody ever heard of, because who can name any famous sociologist? But he is famous, a guy named Robert Merton. And he came up with this idea of cumulative advantage. And the idea is this, is if you can identify some core competency, and I'd like to talk a little bit more about that, because it doesn't have to be a degree from Harvard or $1 million in the bank. It could be almost any advantage that you have. It could even be something random. It usually is. So you look at, what are my skills? What are my strengths? What is my location? What is my heritage? What are my connections? And then how do we apply that to fractures in the status quo, which are shifts going on in the world? Now, I started writing this book in 2019. I couldn't have predicted that we were about to enter the biggest shift, the biggest fracture in the status quo, arguably in history, called the pandemic. That's why I think this book is particularly relevant, because so much is changing, so much is shifting, and every shift, every wave of change creates a new opportunity to apply these special advantages we have in a new way. So it's a new way of thinking about strategy. Instead of a 2-year plan, it's like, here's what I have right now. It's like a surfer. I got a good surfboard. I don't need to change the surfboard. I need to find a new wave. And there are lots of waves coming at us. And it's a continuous process of being relevant today, in this month, not worrying about 2 years ago, but how do we be relevant right now and create momentum right now? That's the short answer.
No, that's amazing because I agree. Relevancy is one of those things that I find as difficult to consistently stay on the top of the bubble, right?
Oh yeah.
It's so hard. I mean, especially I would even argue for those of us who've been around for a while, it's harder, I would argue, maybe even for us than it is because we kind of get set in our ways, versus somebody who's just kind of getting started. But I have a question for you. Um, when it comes to core competencies or that core thing that makes us unique, we're always trying to do that, especially from a personal brand perspective. How do we like show up, and showcase our uniqueness? Do you think people can do it on their own? Can they figure out what their special sauce is on their own, or do they need a helping hand? I think it's because sometimes difficult for people to see themselves authentically and clearly as someone else might see them. So what's your take on that?
That's a very keen observation, Kim. It really is, because I do think everybody has that thing, and the people tend to overthink it. Your core advantage is almost always something random. I mean, how did Bill Gates become Bill Gates? It wasn't because he had an Ivy League degree or he came from a rich family or whatever. It's because when he was a teenager, he had access to early computer prototypes that nobody else had, and he was coding before anybody else. So it was random. He was in the right place at the right time. I can create a direct line, Kim, between the reason I'm talking to you today and a random conversation I had with my boss in the 1990s. I was in this marketing job for a Fortune 100 company, and I was kind of stuck in my job. I was looking around, what's going on? And the internet was starting. So I went to my boss. I said, I have a radical idea. I think there could be some business applications to the internet, and I would like to get an AOL account and put it on my company expense account. And after much debate, because he thought this $9.99 was a complete waste of time, I was the first person officially on the internet at this Fortune 100 company. And eventually I became the global director of e-business, basically because of that random conversation. That launched my career in a completely new trajectory where I became known for digital marketing. It started with this idea. But the difference is, it wasn't just an idea. I pursued the idea and it connected with this new wave. The internet is coming. Now, I agree with you that everybody has this sort of portfolio of advantages. And whenever I coach people, they're telling me, but they don't hear it. So I agree with you that a lot of times it's right there, and maybe they're just not asking themselves the right question, or they're not giving themselves enough credit for this advantage that could become something powerful in the world. Certainly it's there, but I agree with you that sometimes people need a little coaching and help along the way.
Yeah, I think it's difficult sometimes to see yourself and understand your own genius. When it comes to advantages, though, you talked about some of it. We all have advantages. There are different ones. Sometimes, you've had a higher education than somebody else. You've had, socioeconomic, whatever you want to, all the categories. Sometimes it's race. Sometimes there's different things that people put in their pile of advantage or disadvantage, because in some cases they view it as a disadvantage. Do
Yes.
you believe that that is what restricts people or launches them? I mean, what is that internal thing that sparks someone's success versus somebody who lets either holds them back or doesn't fully take advantage of what's in their basket?
Well, I think, and this is something that I address in my book. And this was, I got to tell you, Kim, this was a hard book to write. And especially the last chapter of the book, chapter 10, there's a little bit of a surprise where I take the book sort of in a completely different direction, because I was haunted by this idea that a business book, and this book could almost be in the category of self-help, a business book or self-help book by definition is elitist, because it assumes you have the money to buy the book. You have the resources and the time to act on the book. And that's just not true. And I hated that. I just hated that. So in the last part of the book, I address it and I talk about, now that we sort of know what this pattern of momentum is. Once you read my book, you'll never see the world the same way again, because you'll see this pattern everywhere. Every successful person, every successful business, you'll see this same pattern. I think that certainly some of us have, we have, natural advantages built in. I am a straight, white, able-bodied man living in America. That's a huge advantage over somebody that is suffering in some way in the Ukraine right now, huddled in a cave or something, or someone growing up in a third world country. So just by, the random luck of birth, I was kind of like launched a little faster than others. But I do, so, 2 points on that. I think number one, once we know, I probably got a little deeper in this. Maybe you didn't know where I was going with this. Maybe you got a little more than you asked for there, Kim. But I think number one, once we understand how these sparks of opportunity work, this is something that anybody can do. So we can create momentum for others. The other thing is, in my case, every time I've had an obstacle, every time I've had pain, a problem, a betrayal, you can look at it as an obstacle, or you can find a way to embrace it, and eventually it turns into a new superpower, because you've changed in a way that makes you better, more sensitive, more empathetic, more sympathetic, more aware. So, it's a complicated topic, but it's obviously, you can hear a lot of passion from me right now. It is something close to my heart.
Definitely. And, yeah, I mean, we could get into that a lot more, but I think you said it so beautifully. Question, we talked about catching the waves, when it comes to marketing. What do you think? I mean, I feel like going back and looking at my own history, I feel like, I've been able to see the waves coming. And
Yeah.
I think you do too now, because
Yeah.
we've had that experience.
Yeah.
So how much of like momentum or grabbing the wave is luck, timing?
You ask the best questions. You really do. All right. So there is an element of timing. So you can count timing as luck. But here's what we need to do. We need to be aware of the waves. And I love the way that you said we used to be able to see the waves coming at us, right? So like when the internet started, oh, here's the internet. We need to take some classes and learn about this. But here's the issue, Kim. I think we are moving into a phase where change in the world is so rapid and so unexpected, we can't see change coming at us like we used to. When COVID hit, My business crashed to zero in 48 hours. I had built this amazing career. I was irrelevant in 48 hours. I had no work. I had no place. I had no career. I had no money. And so I had to look at, how do I apply myself in a new way and adjust to these shifts? I am becoming a collector of shifts. I'm looking around, and when something like when something in the news makes me go, what? That doesn't make sense. I dig deeper. Now, I'll give you an example. On my blog today, I posted an article that is just, it just hit me so deeply, that I think one of the biggest megatrends in the world today is mental health. If you start noticing what's happening in the world, there's this idea that, people are isolated, they're lonely, they're depressed, they want to belong. Think about the Olympics, the new message from Simone Biles during March Madness. Powerade created this whole advertising campaign about how we need to pause, right? We have this accumulated stress and strain in the world right now. So, what does that mean? The world needs to be soothed. That's a wave. That's a megatrend. That's a shift. We're whacked out. We're going to be whacked out for a long time. So, what does that mean? We need to relax. This is going to be good for businesses for massage, exercise, music, comfort foods, comfortable clothes, candles, flowers, gardening, hobbies, fitness, anything that helps you disconnect. This is a huge wave. So this is an opportunity. If you have a business, an idea, some internal opportunity or advantage you can leverage, that is one huge trend. But there's millions of them. There are millions of little fractures in the status quo right now. I recently read, Kim, 20% of consumers right now will switch to a business or a brand if they're safer and cleaner. What does that mean? What if you're in banking? What if you have an insurance company and you say, we are the safest, cleanest location in the city. We have no touch banking. That's going to appeal to a lot of people today, right? So there's just so many changes. Everything is shifting. How we work, where we work, when we work. For a lot of people, even if we work. How we learn, how we educate, how we teach our children. We're renegotiating our relationship with food. We're learning how to cook with our children. So everything is changing. I had a conversation with an executive at Adidas, or if you're listening from Europe, Adidas. He said, sport is being redefined by the pandemic. So it's an opportunity it's a time of huge opportunity. We just have to be aware of it and constantly connecting these things to our strengths.
I love how you said that. That is so amazing. One of the things that one of the quotes I picked up from your book was, you were talking about, don't confuse what you sell with what people really buy. And
Yeah.
you talked about that a little bit, like, how people are like, they're going to buy something that's safer and cleaner, right?
Yeah.
But what does that really mean in the context? Because I think a lot of times people are trying to, they don't always look at it from the buyer's perspective. I've got this thing and it's amazing, and they don't really look at it through the buyer's eyesight, if you call it that. So what would you give? How would you give advice to people who are in that place where, they have something to sell, but they haven't really looked at it through the.
I think this is a problem in particular with entrepreneurs. They have an idea and they're so in love with it that they think that everybody's going to be in love with it. And I'll give an example where there was a startup and they actually grew quickly to be a very, very rapidly growing, successful business. And they had never had a marketing person before. So they hired me to come in as a consultant and create their marketing message. Well, the people who started this company were deep, deep, deep into technology. And they were so proud of their geekhood that they knew everything about this technology and they were on top of everything. And they were providing something that was just so great that everybody should certainly love it because this was so geeky and crazy and great. Well, when I went out and talked to their customers and I said, why do you love them? Why them? They said, oh, we love them because they never let us go down in our services, our tech services. 2 a.m, 3 a.m, they're here. And look, I'm working at a hospital. I can't have this go down. I'm working at a prison. I can't have this go down. These people give me security and assurance and comfort. They never mention the technology. They don't care about the technology. So what this company was selling was geeky, geeky, geeky tech, tech, tech. What the people were buying was just don't let me go down. I need to be able to rely on you and I trust you and you're always there for me. They were buying assurance. So we had to completely change the marketing message because what they were selling isn't what the customers were buying. Now, here's why this is important and why this is another excellent question that you asked. Our customers are changing so much right now. Their needs are so different. Their mindset, their habits, their patterns are so different. We can't take anything for granted. If you think you know why someone is buying from you, check again. This is a time in marketing to be humble, to listen, to go out and see your customers and talk to your customers. How's it going? How are we going for you? How, what's keeping you up at night? How can we be better? What's going on with our competitors? This is a time to check in on our customers and be open to everything changing. And if you listen carefully, your customers will tell you why they love you and why
Yes.
they're buying from you.
And you mentioned something earlier. You were talking about, people are so disconnected and they want community, they want connection, they want to have a sense of, you know, I don't know, I guess community. And how do you, as especially those of us who are in the online education space, I think there's a real rich opportunity right now to really provide that connection. With technology today, we can do it in a way that is still not just texting or typing back and forth, but bringing in community into a Zoom community, or where people can see and be face to face with one another. So going back to momentum real quick, have you seen, or do you, I know you have some examples of businesses that have saw the wave, got on the wave, and then taken advantage of the momentum. Can you give us a couple of examples?
Well, I would be one. Because
You
again,
were saying a minute ago you were a collector of how'd you say it? I forgot.
collector of chips.
Yes, I say
Not, and I hope people are hearing that right. I'm not a collector of shit. I'm a collector of shit
shifts.
with an F. Yeah.
I tell people that I'm the master of the pivot. So it's similar thing. So I love that.
Yeah. And and a pivot does it. Like I said, it's not necessarily abandoning what you do. If you're really good at what you do, is just applying your goodness and your strengths in a new way. So, oh my gosh. I mean, there's so many, many, many examples in my book, but one that just comes to my mind because I saw a store in the airport the other day was Spanx. Okay. Spanx is a very, very successful brand started by Sarah Blakely. Sarah, she was looking at the clothes in her closet and she realized there were so many of her favorite clothes that she wanted to wear, but she couldn't wear because it was always showing a panty line. I have the same problem. You probably guessed that, right? So she's looking in her closet and she said, we need something that doesn't show these panty lines. And so she created this new product. So she was skilled at marketing. She made these connections in the manufacturing industry. And so there was this wave, right? There was this opportunity, is that the style was these tighter fitting clothes and they needed a solution. And so she just went with it. For me, in my little world, my business crashed and I had to reflect on what is my real advantage? What do I bring to the world? I'm sort of known as a marketing guy, but I think my real advantage, Kim, is that I'm a teacher. I mean, I'm a really good teacher. But the world needed me to teach something else. So I stopped creating content about marketing and I started creating content about how do we get through this thing, this pandemic? How do we deal with anxiety and the uncertainty of that we don't know what's coming next? And the traffic to my website tripled. And people were telling me, this is the best content I've seen. Oh, I needed this right now. So I took all my best content, wrapped it up in an ebook, gave it away for free. Thousands of people downloaded it. And on the last page of the ebook, I said, if you were inspired by the advice in this ebook, think how much you're going to love bringing Mark Schaefer into your boring Zoom meeting. That was the wave. People hated these meetings. They needed a lift. They needed inspiration. And so I said, look, I'll just give a 15-minute talk. I had never given a 15-minute talk before, but it was a new day. The world needed something different. And by July and August of 2020, I was having record months. So the other lesson here, Kim, is that wave didn't last forever. It didn't last for 2 years. I'm not doing that talk anymore. So you have to keep looking at what's next. What's next? What's the next wave?
I love that. What a powerful story. So I'm curious when it comes to leveraging momentum, if you can find that like hook, if you will, how do you I love that story that you had about, that one liner at the end of your ebook where, we'll bring you I'll come into your boring Zoom meetings. Brilliant, by the way. But for somebody who's like, okay, I hear all this, I wished I'd have thought of that. Like, how does somebody else build momentum in their business? Do you have like some strategies that you could give to help people figure that out on their own?
Yeah, absolutely. In the Cumulative Advantage book, there are actually 5 steps, and there are exercises and tips for each of these 5 steps. And again, I think the thing that's powerful about this is that number one, to create momentum, you don't need anything special. You don't. It's accessible to everyone. It really is. You just have to recognize the pattern. So that's number one. It's accessible to everyone. I think the second thing that's important is that this is not just my idea or something I came up with. This is backed by research. Every single step has been shown basically through sociological research, but these patterns of momentum have been proven in almost every career path. For example, in sports, it was shown that professional athletes who had the advantage of early coaching, professional coaching, early as children, had longer careers and made more money. It's been shown in entertainment with Oscar award winners. It's been shown with Nobel Prize winners that the winners weren't necessarily the smartest people or the best scientists or the best researchers. They had some advantage that they were able to use early in their life to build momentum. And here's another fact that sort of blew me away. When this research was being done, I think it was in the 60s on the Nobel Prize winners. I think the number was 80%. 80% of the Nobel Prize winners had worked for a Nobel Prize winner. So it's almost like their advantage was having inside information. They were kind of taught the advantage. They taught the path. They were mentored. They might not have been the greatest scientists, but their advantage is they had help. They had a mentor. That's one of the 5 steps, by the way. So, it's proven the patterns are ubiquitous in our world, and it's available to everyone. And as I said earlier, I think this book is particularly relevant right now because these waves of change are surrounding us in almost an overwhelming way. There's never been a better time to become newly relevant, to build momentum for the business that you love.
I so love that. And I agree because there's so many shifts. I mean, and I just personally think that the genie is out of the bottle. These things are not going back in. The whole work from home, for example. The corporate world has discovered, wow, we were able to let our workforce work from home, and we didn't lose productivity. We actually gained productivity. Look how much money we saved. So opportunities are knocking in so many ways right now. So question, because so many people focus in on consistency. They hammer that home, got to be consistent. Yeah. Is it consistency that wins the day, or is it the next big idea? What's your thoughts?
Well, it's kind of both, I suppose, because I mean, so so here's sort of a way to think about it. So you assess where you are, what are your advantages? You find this seam. In the book, I call it, it's not a wave, I call it a seam. You find this seam. Here's my opportunity. I'm going to burst through this as long as I can, as fast as I can, right? Just as I did when my business crashed. And I started this little thing of 15-minute talks, right? I said, look, here's the opportunity, boring Zoom meetings. I need to just burst through this as fast as I can and take advantage of as much of it as I can. Now, once you find a seam, marketing keeps it open. So in my case, the timing, it was really something controlled by the pandemic and out of my control. But what if you find a seam that can stay open for a long time? Marketing keeps competitors out. It finds new customers. It kind of creates the need, and that's where consistency comes in. So once you burst through the marketing, the consistency, that's what keeps your seam open so that you can get as much advantage for as long as you can. It can be years. It can be decades. All right. That's what Coca-Cola is all about. Coca-Cola has this niche, right? They have this refreshing drink. More importantly, they have an emotional connection to your audience, their audience. People love Coke so much, they even collect Coke memorabilia, right? The only way they're going to be relevant, the only way that they're going to continue to be able to sell Coca-Cola is to become newly relevant for the next generation. That's what Coca-Cola is. Coca-Cola, the business plan for Coca-Cola is become relentlessly relevant to every generation. And you've got to do that through marketing to hold that seam open. That's the role of consistency in this strategy.
Love, love, love how you explain that. For I see a lot of comments. A lot of people are really resonating with, your what you're saying in relation to, like, find the seam, burst through it. Marketing will keep it open. Question, for those who are like, okay, like seams, what do you see some seams in the landscape that you could maybe like point people to that might be applicable to their space? Like
Sure.
the metaverse, or like,
Yeah.
what's your thoughts?
Well, there are so many. I mean, we talked about the whole mental health thing. We talked about the cleanliness and safety thing. Here's one that I think is particularly relevant to marketing. During the pandemic, something started in China called live commerce. It combines a celebrity or an influencer, live streaming, um, impulse buying, because you can buy right away. Now, during the pandemic, impulse buying soared. Why? Because we don't go to the store because we need something. We're going like this, clicking through our phones because we're bored. 55% of all sales are impulse buys. Now, that's a huge way to think about marketing. Let's get back to this idea: live commerce, impulse buying, live streaming, combined with a celebrity. About 2 months ago, a celebrity influencer in China sold $5 billion worth of goods in one day, live streaming through this live commerce idea. This is slow to be taking off in America and Europe, but this is a huge opportunity, right? Customer service is another one. Customer service is terrible right now. There's a lot of things going on. Number one, a lot of our business went online. We didn't beef up our call centers fast enough to respond. We can't get enough people to work in those jobs. A lot of the work has gone remote. And the research is showing, Kim, that remote customer service people are not working as effectively as people in call centers. The result is that 97% of Americans say customer service is worse now than it was a year ago. 97%. When your service is bad, they're going to tell, on average, 7 people about your bad service. If they're happy about it, on average, they're going to tell 2. So if you have anything to do with customer service, recruiting people, nurturing people, retaining people, training people, or if you can somehow transcend the problem for your business and have excellent customer service, that can create huge new opportunities for you right now. I've started to travel again, and I can tell you every restaurant, hotel, airline is terrible right now. It's filthy. It's slow. Things aren't happening like they were. And so if you can either serve that business or transcend this in your own industry, that is a huge, huge problem. So those Those are just a few off the top of my head.
And so big, but I mean, so underserved, I maybe, or overlooked maybe. Especially, I love you talked about the customer service piece because it is so bad. I am totally in agreement with
Terrible.
you.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this just the other day, in fact, because usually customer service, even if you own an online business, it's one of those things that, well, let's outsource to this person or that person or whatever. And you got to remember that your customer service is the face of your business. And yet we don't look at it through that lens. A lot of time we're like, oh, it's a byproduct. We got to have it. But if they have to your point, I mean, I look at it through my lens too. Like, I don't usually leave reviews unless I leave a bad one.
Well, customer service today is like the IT department in the 90s. The
Right?
IT department, we wanted to just cut the costs.
Yes.
It's a cost to be managed. And now IT is the middle of everything. It's the middle of our strategy. That's where customer service is, unfortunately. It's just like, we're going to pay the lowest wages. We want to just get rid of it. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the front lines of our business.
Right. It should be a focal point.
It's number
I mean,
one.
I'm pointing my finger at myself too here when I say that, because I was realizing, oh my gosh, I've been just like a lot of other people. Let's just check that box. And so I was definitely looking at it through how I could do this better. So interesting that you brought that up. I totally agree with you. Okay, so as we're picking the winners for today's show, let me ask you this. I always like to end with, what's a question I should have asked but didn't? Put you on the spot there.
Well, so one of the things I believe so strongly, Kim, is the book I wrote before this one, which is actually there, right there, Marketing Rebellion. The subtitle is "The Most Human Company Wins." And I think if you look at a lot of the things we talked about today, customer service and belonging and connection, um, being comforted and soothed, sort of point to this idea that one of the reasons that marketing is sick in a lot of places right now is we've become preoccupied with technology and our MarTech stack and algorithms and lead nurturing, when marketing is supposed to be about emotional connection. And so I think what we need to do is look at all the marketing that we're doing. If we're doing things that people hate, stop it and double down on what people love. Look for every touch point we have and think, how can I make this more human? How can I add my face, my smile, show my passion, show my compassion in every text message, email, complaint, customer meeting, event? How can we be more human? And that's how I'd like to end my part of your show.
I love it. Thank you. So I just want to give a quick shout out to Nancy and Sally, who won the cumulative advantage. You guys are going to love that. If you didn't win today, but you want to grab it, definitely go over to, there's a link down under. It's a little convoluted, but grab that link or just go to Amazon, type in cumulative advantage. Like I said, Mark has 9 books now. So if you are a ferocious business focused, marketing focused reader, you are going to love every one of his books. So Mark, thank you so much for being with us and sharing your genius. I told you guys you were going to get way deeper conversation because he is a thinker. He is a higher level thinker for sure. So hopefully you guys got some blessings from today's conversation with Mark. Guys, go check him out. Now I have your website up here, but where else would you like people to connect with you, Mark?
Well, businesses grow. You can really find everything about me. And I have launched a new creator token on rally.io. And this is sort of my new experiment. This is my new wave, I think, that I'm looking at. is how can, what's Web3 and how do we create belonging and community through this tokenized economy. So if you're interested in that at all, just write me an email and I'll give you some tokens for free. And you can join the learning community and the experiment right along with me. But businesses grow. There's actually a little tab on the nav bar about that, about Rise, my creator coin. And but other than that, everything's at Businesses Grow, Kim.
Awesome. So I love that you said you were doing the coin thing. We had oh goodness, I hate when I have a brain cramp and I can't think of a name. Oh, yeah, well, it's not coming to me, so I won't embarrass myself any further. but I'm excited to see where the coin thing goes. I have not done anything with the NFTs yet, but very fascinating space. That might be another wave for some.
It is a wave. It is.
Yeah.
For sure.
I will definitely be following along with your journey. So, all right. Well, thank you again for being with us. Thank all of you. When you give us some of your time and attention, we know how valuable it is. So we appreciate you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day, week. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe and God bless.